Thanks for coming today. Obviously super excited to put camp to rest here and get this 2022 season kicked off. I mean, I think our team's had a very productive, few weeks of preseason camp. We the ebbs and flows of injuries and things like that are present here like they are in every locker room across the country. And, we've dealt with that and we'll continue to deal with that and continue to move on. But excited to get the stands in the glass bowl full and people back in the seats and ready to rock and roll next Thursday night. So with that being said, I'll take your questions.
So, you've had 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever, of camp. How optimistic are you right now heading into the season?
Well, I think that's a slippery slope to say that any team in today's world of college football, I think, is much different than what it was last year on videotape. I think take a look at this first opponent. You really don't know a lot about them. New coaching staff, their first game together, a lot of unknowns. The transfer portal rosters have flipped over, in mass numbers and on darn near every campus. So, I think as you project and, as you look ahead, like I told our team today, it's not a bunch of what maybe other people are doing, but maybe focus more on what we have to do and what we have to correct from last season and, learn from our past mistakes as we prepare to head into this thing. So, we'll still take this week's approach as business as usual. There'll be a lot of good-on-good periods through this week of practice and really working on some things I think we have to do and we have to fix to become the team that we want to be, because this is certainly still a process.
How concerning were the offensive line injuries, and how tough is it to experience that kind of stuff in fall camp?
Well, I don't know if you feel for yourself or you feel for the football team. You feel for those two people. You know what I mean? You feel for those guys. You feel for any player that has an injury that they've worked extremely hard to get to a point in time in their career where they want to see the fruits of their labor a little bit, and that's been stripped from them and over things that they can't control. I mean, these are things that we play a violent game, that injuries happen, and you always say that. Everybody says that until it happens to you. I experienced it as a player. I missed my entire junior season. It's not a fun thing to go through physically, first and foremost, but it's even worse to go through that mentally. So, we got to wrap our arms around those guys. We got to keep them close to our program and not to let them drift away. And even though they may not be on the same schedule as some of the other guys every day, still maintain that their consistency of who they are each and every day as Rockets, because they're major parts of what we're doing. And, a couple of those guys are local guys, and obviously they steal the attention. But, injuries happen each and every year, and next man up mentality as it comes to the football piece of it. But, you never want to see any guy go through that.
Obviously there's no positive to anyone getting hurt, but the fact that it happened, a few weeks before the game, like timing-wise, is that at least let whoever's going to replace them?
Yeah, I mean, I would be crazy to sit here and to whine about it and cry about it. When I talk to our football team all the time about adversity and how we respond to it. And this is maybe this is part of the plan. Test our people and see who can step up and who can be the next man up and how that can. The timing is never right. I mean, there's not a. I didn't want to lose Jerwan Newton the day before the Bowling Green game on a broken foot running a pass route on air last year, but we did. And, to that young man's credit, he's come back stronger than ever, and I would expect these guys to do the same thing, the guys that went down, here the last few weeks.
There's a lot of, talk around DeQuan taking this big leap. Obviously, it was pretty solid last year, his first 7 games or whatever he started. What did you see from him this summer and then into fall camp as the season?
Yeah, I think the next thing is, obviously when you watch the tape, you want to see the footwork and the process of getting the ball in your hand and what that looks like with your feet at that position really speed up. And I think that helps you make better decisions. That helps you be more confident where the football is going to be going. I think when your lower half pauses and slows down a little bit, sometimes that's a good cue that mentally maybe you're not, totally sold on what's happening in that 2.5 seconds that you have. I think we've seen growth in that area. I think we've seen, he made great decisions last year. He didn't turn the football over. Counted for 27 touchdowns, I think, last year, and only turned it over 3 times. And, one of them was a batted pick in the bowl game. So, I think that, he's a guy that learns from his mistakes. He owns them. And I think that's the only way to learn from him is you got to own them and you got to then go to work to fix them. So I think I've seen a lot of growth in him as a human being. It's been fun to watch him kind of lead that group. And I think it's a different feeling, too, when you kind of understand that coming into a season that's you're the quarterback. You're not fighting for your rear end every day in practice. Like somebody's always constantly looking over your shoulder for every little mistake you make. So we have a lot of confidence in him. Our team has a lot of confidence in him. We got to do a great job putting a plan around him each and every week to help him be successful. Much like good young players, he's a momentum player, and when he gets going, it's really, really fun to watch. We got to do a better job helping him get off to some better starts here too.
You've been around college football more than half your life now, I guess. When you see your guys' defensive line and that front seven, just what kind of words pop into your mind?
Yeah, I'm tired of blocking them in practice, to be honest with you. Honestly, if I got to watch 56 run by me one more time, standing behind the quarterback and yelling sack in my face, I'm going to lose my mind. But all in good fun, obviously. But yeah, they're tough to deal with. They're hard to block. They're explosive. They're agile guys that are not little dudes. I mean, they're big guys that can move and they create a lot of havoc. They've had some statement games here in the past. I think the biggest thing for me is like, now can we, 11 tackles for loss last year against Notre Dame, and then, some guys weren't to be found against Eastern Michigan. Like, how do we maintain that level of consistency, and talking season's over. Like, we can tell everybody what list we're on, where we think we're going to be, how good somebody projects to be, but that talking season, that stuff's done. It's time to play football now. So, 12 guaranteed opportunities where these guys are going to be tested. People are going to have to find creative ways to create extra gaps and do that kind of thing to try to run the football on us effectively, and I think they'll be tested when it comes to that. So, but I think a tremendous challenge I think our guys are up to. But, yeah, I mean, they can create some problems for the offense. There's no doubt about that.
Going back to the offensive line, do you know what that line's going to look like Thursday? Do you still need the next couple of practices, those good-on-good sessions to shake that out and figure that out?
No, I got a good idea. I mean, I think that, this is – you always have contingency plans in place. You always have what-if scenarios that play out and go through your mind as a head coach. And, I think that we've had injuries in the past that guys have now come back from. And I think, you don't like to go through it at the time because you created some tough moments at times last year with this. But I think those guys are that have played and went through that, they're a little bit more experienced now. And I feel like that, we'll put 5 out there and, play 6, 7, maybe 8 guys through the course of the football game, maybe even more than that, and get some guys some live reps and see what it looks like. But, again, I think it comes back down to creating some success for them, creating some rhythm for them. The quarterback has a lot to do with that. I think maybe playing one quarterback, rather than 2 like we did to start the season last year has a little bit to do with maybe some of our pre-snap deficiencies last year at the beginning of the year. So looking forward and hoping that we get off to a better start from a rhythmic standpoint offensively.
6 days before the opener, what do you know about your team? What do you still need to learn this week?
Well, I mean, I think there's always we practiced today. We were off yesterday. We'll bring them in tomorrow and we'll walk through and treat tomorrow like a normal Monday. But, this is his first real off day, and now you mentally challenge them to transition into game week. And I didn't think it was very good today, to be honest with you. I just thought it was an average practice. And, you can't practice for 3 hours in game week. You can't. There's going to be low moments throughout a preseason camp practice, but they're longer practices. You got time to catch the momentum back, and so I think that you always worry about the transition of going from camp to game week, and then like I always say, like the biggest jump between game 1 to game 2 is what you want to see, because this is going against next Thursday night another opponent rather than ourselves. So, if you're a good offensive player or a smart defensive player, and you've practiced against the same team for 21 practices now, and you don't know what we're going to do, or we don't know what the defense is going to do, or in kicking game we don't know what the guy you're going against in practice is going to do, then you haven't been paying attention. So I think these guys are ready to hit somebody else, or ready to compete against someone else, and put it all together and see what it looks like.
You kind of alluded to it. You're playing on a Thursday. With Maction, you're used to playing on non-Saturdays, and having that first game be a Thursday, does that make that calendar a little bit easier as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Maction's different because you get into a Saturday routine. I mean, honestly, I don't know what day of the week it is now, and haven't for the last 3.5 weeks. So every day is here. Every day is staring at 115 faces in this room to start the day, and we're here from the time the sun comes up until the time it goes down. So they'll kind of run together now. I mean, I don't know, if we go play today if we could. So Thursday, Saturday, I don't know if that's a big deal. Like I said, I think this team's ready to get into the competition phase of this. They've worked really hard from January now until this point in time, and I think they want to go see where they're at.
You said 56 has been a little ornery in practice. What's it meant to have him back healthy, and what's it do for the other side of the line? Because now you got to pick your poison.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he's a disruptive guy. Jamal's a disruptive guy. Judge is a disruptive guy. Deswan's a disruptive guy. Keep going down the list. DA's a disruptive guy. Nate's a disruptive guy. Oliver's disruptive. I mean, there's 6, 7, 8 guys in there that can come in and do a really good job. And I think that depth and that rotation, I think, will help us, in the long run. I think that, you bumps and bruises take their toll as the season goes on. And I think that, that for the first time in a long time, all those guys were here last year, but some of them were playing in their first game experience. So now they have some experience on the belt. They know what it looks like. I think we're gonna have to lean on them, as the course of the season goes, for sure.
You mentioned being out a season at Maggie. That was an injury? What was the injury?
Wrist.
So you obviously gone through it yourself. How big of a mental grind is that?
Yeah, I made the analogy to our team the other day. You got people that have to pick you up, and your family can't be here on the college campus with you each and every day. So they're going to call, they're going to text you, they're going to ask you how you're doing, and obviously you're going to tell them you're doing great, but you might not be doing great, And I think one thing I really appreciate about this team is I think it's a really connected team. I think it's a group of guys that are, they understand they hurt when those guys got hurt. You know what I mean? They felt that pain, and they didn't feel the pain of, oh man, we're not going to be a good football team. They felt that pain for those guys and understanding how hard they've worked to get to this point in time. So, like I said, we'll keep those guys close to us, and we've had guys that have gone through that, coaches that have went through that, and anybody that's played football fears that. They fear that this could be the last play. Whether they say it, whether it's on the forefront of their thinking or not, probably not, but in the back of their mind, they understand what they've signed up for. So, you don't want to go through it, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. These guys their careers are not over. They'll come back from this and I think be ready to rock and roll. But like I said, through a tough mental phase of this thing, we got to help them, grind it out here.
You have a really tough 4-game stretch beginning with that Ohio State game in a few weeks. How important do you think it is to create momentum, gain confidence the first couple weeks of the season?
Yeah, I'm not worried about it, to be honest with you. I'm more worried about Thursday night and getting this thing kicked off the right way and getting our team into a rhythm of playing football, competitive football against somebody else rather than ourselves. And, each game is going to present a series of challenges. This one, there's a lot of unknowns, a good transfer quarterback that's there and a new coaching staff that has been at some great places. And I know Coach Cooper will do a great job getting these guys prepped and ready to go. And, we have to be at our best and handle the detail things that we've talked about, in the entire offseason so we can play effectively, and see how it turns itself out. And then we'll have a series of challenges that we got to come back and fix and, lead to week 2 and repeat that process. And I think sometimes in years past here where we maybe missed is we haven't repeated that process at a high level. And I think that's a challenge that every football team goes through. And you'll see football tomorrow and the opening weekend that'll look really crisp and at times it'll look really sloppy. You saw that last week as high school football kicked off in the state and, everybody's going to want to see a progression. And I think what we need to do is we need to get out there, find out who we are, and then fix the mistakes and see if we can see a progression here as we continue to climb on this journey that we all said we wanted to be on.
You had several transfers this offseason that seemed like they could be immediate impact type guys on this team. How have they been during fall?
Yeah, I think they've all kind of, done a good job in their own right of trying to carve their own way and find their role. It's always a hard, especially if you weren't here for spring practice. I think that's always a hard thing to come into a new situation in the summer, and especially in a veteran team and if you're a veteran guy. So if you're a freshman and you don't know, there's a little bit more leeway there as far as what the transition process goes. But, but being a veteran guy coming in, you got Dallas and Zeke and Barkley and a couple of those Torres, a couple of those guys, I think they fit in great. And I don't really worry about the football piece of it. We wouldn't have brought them here if I thought the football piece of it was going to be a question. Always concerned about how they integrate themselves in the locker room, how they fit in with their teammates, how they interact with their coaches, how do they take coaching. Is there some reason maybe why they left the other place that I didn't get to the bottom of from a character standpoint of things? And I don't see any of that. I see guys that are committed to being the best player they can be. They want to be part of the Toledo Rocket football team and embrace their teammates and help them go along this journey that they've set out to be to do as well. So some of them have been a pleasant surprise. Others are dealing with injuries and banged up and things like that, and as they progress through, and that's his own set of challenges. But I think all in the long run will all find a great role for us and help us.
I know it's tough to single out one or two guys, but who might be some guys that have made a step in this training camp that maybe the fan in the stands isn't going to maybe expect to see, and you've seen that over the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, I think, I don't. obviously the people that are touching the football at a high rate are always the people that come to mind for everybody. And obviously, Bryant Kobeck has been here for so many years and done such a good job of solidifying and being that number one back. I think there's a 3 or 4 guys there that could really catch the eye of the casual fan. And Micah Kelly, Jacquez Stewart have waited patiently for their turn. Penny Boone is coming on very strong. Willie Shaw is coming on very strong. Then you turn out to the receivers and tight ends. Lenny Cool at tight end has been really good. Anthony Torres has been a good, pleasant surprise as a transfer in here at tight end. At receiver, Demir has stepped up and done some really nice things. Adam Beals had some really good days, a local guy from here in Springfield. So Thomas Zyros has had some really good days, another local guy from here at St. John. So I think, Jerwan Newton has kind of seized the moment here to try to be the number one receiver, which has been, from a leadership standpoint and from a playmaking standpoint of things, has been very refreshing to see. And I think he's maybe stabilized that room in a certain sense that it's a go workman-like mentality now rather than, maybe in years past where it's a me-first mentality type of thing. So, I think those guys are, there's 5, 6, 7 skilled guys out there that, would make you look at your game program and say, man, who's this guy? But recruited, highly recruited guys that have developed over time and have waited patiently to have their opportunity. I think one thing that COVID created was, hey, bring all these guys back. Yep, great for those guys. But in a certain sense, some growth for some players was stimulated here, and it's not weight room growth. It's not nutrition growth. It's game experience growth. And these guys are ready to go, and we've been spoiled here. You got Bryce Harris for 7 years. You got Denzel McKinley-Lewis for 7 years. You got Tyson Anderson, Sam Womack, all these guys that were really good players were vets that had been here for a long time. There's guys ready to go here. And then if you turn it over to the defensive side of the ball, I think, R.J. Delancey's turned up and kind of went from a special teams guy to a guy that would be playing a lot in the secondary. Zach Ford's a guy that was from a part-time player last year to be playing a ton in the secondary. Maxon and Nate, those guys in the secondary, those 2 safeties have been really good through preseason. Chris McDonald, Quinion Mitchell, really good at corner. Dre Fuller stepped up in a major way. And if you start to – there's a guy at every position, and if I start singling everybody out here, I'll miss some. But excited for some new faces to do some good things.
On the subject of transfers, what's the philosophy of wanting to bring in a guy who you think will do well, but also you're also developing your own recruits? How do you decide what?
I think it's a very slippery slope. You could probably go into the transfer portal today, and there's some good players sitting there from somewhere that's just off the videotape that says, hey, this might be better than what we may project having next year. So you're always matching up what you think is right in front of you to what you think you can get out of what you have and develop. I think we've erred more on the side of development. I don't think that we are in a position that the transfer portal will save our roster ever. And if we get into that point in time, I think it's game over. I think you're swimming in the deep end of the pool without any help there. I think it's more of a supplementation of your roster and try to, if you have an injury, you have somebody that goes down. If there's a hole to fill, you can bring somebody in but they have to fit your locker room. They have to fit from a character standpoint. They have to understand that we represent something bigger here than just somebody that goes out and plays football 12 days out of the year. You're going to go to community service with the rest of our guys. You're going to, do what you're supposed to do in the classroom and handle the responsibilities that you have as a young man and represent our football program in a first-class manner. So I think culture and the continuity of your team is always at the forefront of every decision you make. And, when you're considering transfers and you're considering going that route, I think that's a very slippery slope. And, you don't want to sound like the coach that says, hey, you ask your players who they want in your locker room with them, but you need to do that. You got to talk to your team. You got to, kid comes on a recruiting visit. Does this guy fit us? And if he doesn't, you can't take him, because you don't want to disrupt that, and I think that is always a topic of discussion in meeting rooms about that.